Welcome, this is Local Lights, and I'm your host, Daisy Vargas. Today we will be talking about a very special program that has been in existence in Sonoma County for the past 42 years. That is SAY, also known as Social Advocates for Youth. And to talk all about it, we have Matt Martin, who's the Executive Director. So thank you for being here today with us, Matt.
Thank you, Daisy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Definitely. And so please tell us, what is SAY's mission and how long have you been there?
Yeah, I've been with Social Advocates for Youth for a little more than 4 years now. But when you look at SAY's history, 4 years is a very small part because, as you said, we started back in 1971 as a local nonprofit here, founded because at that time, here in Sonoma County, it was against the law for any reason for a child to run away from home. So, for example, back in 1971, if a teenage girl, for example, looked at her bedroom and then looked at the streets of Sonoma County and chose the streets as a safer option than her bedroom, when she was found by law enforcement, she was actually picked up as a criminal. And she was brought to juvenile hall. And at that time, there was a group of defense lawyers who were working with juveniles here in Sonoma County that said, it's not okay that we have victims of, let's say, for example, sexual abuse being treated as criminals and put into juvenile hall. We need some type of service between the streets and the hall, and that's when SAY was founded. We started on Cherry Street in an office there, serving about a dozen young people a year back in 1971. And as you said, here we are now, 42 years later. And in that time, SAY has served over 35,000 young people here in Sonoma County between the ages of 5 and 24. Annually right now here in Sonoma County, we're serving just over 2,000 young people as far north as Cloverdale and as far south and east as Sonoma Valley. And so I feel pretty fortunate to be doing the work that I do. I often say I get to be the executive director of SAY because it really is a privilege.
Great. And so before we get into the programs, I know that there are 3 areas, which are housing, jobs, and then counseling. You mentioned there are 35 youth that access those services. Where do these youth come from?
Yeah, so that's such a great question, because I think when lots of times when folks think about the types of young people, the types of children, the types of teens who need help, I think they have a certain stereotype in mind. But what we've learned over the past 42 years here in Sonoma County, actually these young people are coming from every corner of every neighborhood here in, let's just say, Santa Rosa. So we have young people that we serve and support from Southwest Santa Rosa, from Northwest Santa Rosa. They live in Fountain Grove. They live on McDonald Avenue. They live in Bennett Valley. And we're proud to be able to provide those services to them because, if we were to, you and I, get into a car and drive to every kindergarten classroom tomorrow morning, and we would ask every kindergartner, let's say in Santa Rosa, we said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not one would say they want to be homeless. Not one would say they want to be on a run when they grow older. So what happens? Life happens. Sometimes in people's lives there are cycles that hold them back, that are generational. As people, we all hit rock bottom from time to time. And in the very best case scenarios, when we as human beings hit rock bottom, there are people there to support us in that space because it could be kind of lonely. And that's what SAY does. We help people when they hit rock bottom to make sure that they feel that they're not alone and they have options.
Wow. And so now that you mentioned, there's runaway homeless youth.
Yeah.
Let's start with the housing portion of SAY. So what services do you provide for youth who are in need of a home?
Yeah, that's such a good question and an important one, because the services and support SAY provide around housing are very, very unique. So going back to that story of SAY's beginning back in 1971 when it was illegal to run away from home for any reason, back then SAY did the work with local as well as state legislature to get the laws changed to protect runaways, to protect homeless youth that were in crisis situations. And that work manifested itself in 1991 when we opened the Dr. James E. Coffeehouse Teen Shelter. The Dr. James E. Coffeehouse Teen Shelter is the only one of its kind here in Sonoma County. It's an emergency and crisis shelter for 12 to 17-year-olds. It's located on 1243 Ripley Street, just right around the corner from where we're sitting right now. And it's a 6-bed facility for 12 to 17-year-olds who are in, again, emergency situations. They may need a place to stay tonight. They may have had a blow up at home, and we're working to reunite them with their families, or if the situation needs us to do so, get them involved in foster care system, which sometimes needs to happen. But again, it's a very unique resource, open to all families. Again, because kind of going back to your earlier story, where these youth, who are these young people? They're coming from all neighborhoods to access services that we offer, for example, at the Coffeehouse Teen Shelter. And we're very proud of that. We're very proud of that legacy, and we're very proud of the fact that we're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for those young people who need us most.
Yeah, and I think that SAY is one of the few places that are 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned also that you try to reunite families. How do you do that? Is that through the counseling portion, or is there a different program?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And housing is just one part of it. And so, for example, at the Coffeehouse Teen Shelter, the counseling is very, very important. So we get these teenagers to come in, we keep them safe. That's priority number one. We keep them safe, we notify their families that they're with us, for example, and then we'll work with the family to provide, for example, functional family therapy, which is an evidence-based program which works with the individual within the family to be able to help change those cycles that are holding that family back. And we have a lot of success with that program. And so for us, it's really important that once we find that young person on the street, and once they say, yes, I want to get reunited with my family, we're working with that family over maybe 12 to 16 sessions to figure out what's going on, so that when they walk out the office door or the counseling door that given evening or afternoon, they're going to go back home and they're going to practice these new ways of thinking, these new ways of being, and these new ways of feeling, which are so very important.
And so how many families have gone through the evidence-based program?
You know, we have loads of families going through those programs right now, and SAY is very proud to provide several of these evidence-based programs that are aligned with the Sonoma County Upstream Investments portfolio, which essentially asks the county and asks providers like Social Advocates for Youth to say, you know, consider what kind of program and services you offer, their quality, and how do those qualities align to these goals together as the county to make investments upstream. Because we know if we can work with families earlier through these cycles that are holding them back, it's going to make it a better Sonoma County for everyone later on.
Yeah, and I really like that you just said that it's always, sometimes it's not just working with the individual, but everybody around them and their environment as well. So thank you for sharing with us that specific program.
Yeah, thank you.
Just moving on in terms of jobs, what does SAY offer for youth and families?
Yeah, so Social Advocates for Youth is very, very proud to be a partner with the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps. The Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps is a program, an youth employment program that's overseen by the Sonoma County Workforce Investment Board and managed by the Sonoma County Employment and Training Division, which is a division of the Human Services Department at the county level, as well as in partnership with the Sonoma County Water Agency, Sonoma County Regional Parks, Parks Alliance, Ag and Open Space. You kind of get a sense that there's a lot of people involved in this work in terms of this partnership, the city of Santa Rosa as well. And the reason why is because that first-time job is such an important thing to our development as people. And so we're very proud, SAY, to lead a 5-organization consortium called YouthLink, which is a part of the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps, this wonderful partnership. And SAY works with these 4 other county-wide providers, the Center for Social and Environmental Stewardship, Petaluma People Services Center, Community and Family Services Agency, and Sonoma County Adult Youth Development. And with these 5 organizations, including Social Advocates for Youth, we come together and we form YouthLink. And again, in partnership with the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps, we provide very important job readiness skills development opportunities, as well as job opportunities in the field. This really culminates during the summertime when we employ over about 225 young people to do work in the crews, out in parks, trails, creek beds. And what they're doing is, for example, they do flood mitigation work. They're cleaning out the creeks from non-native species. They're removing trash. They're making trails safe for people to ride their bikes or walk their dogs. They're really giving back to the community while developing really important skills. So like everything that we take for granted, maybe perhaps it's like showing up to work on time, dressing appropriately, how to resolve a conflict with a coworker, or how to ask a question to your supervisor when you're unsure of what to do next. And it's such a wonderful program because it's working with young people who really deserve that chance. And for any one of us who ever held a job, which is most of us, you know what that feels like when you get that check for the very first time, and you look at it, and your name is on the front, and you rip open that envelope, and you've earned that dollar figure on that check, and it's such a wonderful feeling of a sense of purpose. It's also a constructive use of time, and it's giving back. And for the community itself, the community is also receiving the benefit of, again, cleaner creeks, flood mitigation, better parks, wonderful trails. And what's so really nice about the program as well, because these young people are outside doing this work over about an 8-week period during the summertime. And you know, when people are riding their bikes by and they're wearing their gray shirts, the crew members are wearing their gray long sleeve shirts, and the crew leaders are out there with their green long sleeve shirts on. They may have their hats, their safety goggles, and sometimes it's hot and they're doing the work, and someone from the community walks by and says, thank you. Thank you for doing this. And for many of these young people, it may be the very first time that in the community, they're being thanked for being a part of the community. So it's such a wonderful program, and SAY is really happy and honored to be a part of it.
And I can definitely relate when you were saying, when they receive their first check. I remember when I received my first check, and I was also a youth, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I wanted to open it again and put it back in and open it, so I know how that feels. Yeah. But also, I do have friends that have gone through that program, and for a lot of them, it was their first job. Mm-hmm. So a teen, myself, I know how that feels. Yeah. And to be able to provide that opportunity for them, like I said, the skills that they need in order to continue. I know that gave confidence for my friends to be able to apply to other jobs as well during the school year. So it's a great program. Have you seen this change in a specific youth before they enter the program, and during the program, and then afterwards? What do they leave with? What kind of specific skills, or is there a memory that you remember?
There's a lot of stories. To choose one is kind of difficult, but there is this one young man, let's say his name is Frank, who at the time came out of foster care. Had no family, turned 18, and he had a $300 check, and he was able to make that check go about 6 weeks before he had nothing left. So he found himself in an adult shelter, where the average age in the shelter is about 35 to 42, and he was 18 in 1 month. And he just wasn't necessarily ready to be there. And he really worked hard to try to find a job. But I try to imagine, try to find a job, one, living in homeless shelter, which isn't easy by itself, but then 2, not having a physical address to put on an application. 3, not having a phone number to put on an application. So while he was staying at this shelter, Frank heard about Social Advocates for Youth, and he heard about the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps. And he got a hold of SAY, and he said, I'd love to apply, but I don't have an address, and I don't have a phone number. And the case manager at Social Advocates for Youth told him, don't worry about it. Where do you want to meet? And so he's like, well, I'm living close to downtown. Can we have our interview downtown? He's like, and the case manager said, absolutely, we'll meet you downtown. So went through the interview process. It's a very competitive process as well, as you probably know, just from maybe your friends talking about it. Hundreds of young people apply, unfortunately, and only a few hundred can actually earn that position that they so desperately seek. And so Frank earned the position, continued living at the shelter he was living at for the time being, and he was taking his check and actually bringing it to a pawn shop and having a pawn shop hold on to his check for savings. And he worked with the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps all summer, saved all his checks, was enough to save the security deposit needed to apply for and get into Tamile Village, which is another Social Advocates for Youth housing program over at 1700 Yalupa Drive, which is a 25-unit affordable housing program there, where young people between the ages of 18 to 24 who are either former foster care or who are permanently homeless can get the skills and support that they need and the affordable housing to be able to transition to their own apartment, for example. And Frank applied, had the security deposit to get in, earned a job at Social Advocates for Youth as a facility monitor at Tamile Village, stayed there a few years, got the ground under his feet really well settled, attended the JC, just moved out about a month ago to his own apartment in Bennett Valley, and is now a program coordinator for another housing program SAY offers over on Russell Avenue for young people who are seeking extended foster care services. And so you see this nice full circle of a young man, Frank, starting out at SCYEC, getting those checks, saving those checks, putting those checks to work, getting into housing, getting his job, building up his savings, getting into an apartment, and now running a program for other youth who are seeking extended foster care services. And so I think that really kind of captures for me as a person and a professional the impact of what one single program could be for a young person here in Sonoma County.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful success story. I'm amazed and want to congratulate first Frank for doing all that. I know it takes a lot in terms of being able to transition from one place to another, but also Social Advocates for Youth. It seems like you support them all the way through, which is, I think, the beauty of the program.
Thank you.
And so in order to serve more youth, I know that SAY is looking into expanding.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we have a very special opportunity on our hands. Well, let me tell you why and how this all started. So back in 2009, the Sonoma County's Continuum of Care did the first ever homeless youth count here locally. At that time, on a given January afternoon, it was counted 268 homeless teenagers and young adults on the streets of Sonoma County between the ages of 12 and 24. And I think that surprised a lot of us. It surprised me doing the work. Again, it was the first time we ever did the count. 2 years later, because the count is done every 2 years, the count was done again in 2011. And at that time, 701 homeless teenagers between the ages of 12 and 24 were found on the streets of Sonoma County. And quite honestly, Daisy, it was at that point we found ourselves in another it's not okay moment, like the founders of SAY did back in 1971. It's not okay that we have 701 homeless teenagers and young adults on the streets of Sonoma County. And so we started a conversation in the community. We knew Tamile Village was functioning and it was doing very well, having a lot of success. But at the same time, we also knew that waiting list consistently over at Tamile Village was long enough to fill that place 2 times over. We needed more affordable housing. So we started this conversation in the community with some leaders, and we asked, should we try to build affordable housing, or should we try to rehab a building that's already out there? And again, this is back in 2009 when we started this conversation. 2011, I'm sorry. And it was really, the resounding answer to that question was, let's try to rehab something that already exists out there. Let's try to reuse a resource sitting there. So we started a conversation and a dialogue of what that would look like. And someone mentioned the old Warwick Hospital on the corner of Hohen and Summerfield. Now, my parents live out in Oakmont. I have driven by that property at least 80 to 100 times and never once realized that there was a hospital back there. And so instantly I was intrigued. And we found out the owner of the hospital was the Sutter Medical Center of Santa Rosa. We called Sutter Medical and we said, can we take a tour of your building? The building had been de-licensed as a hospital back in 2006 and then shut down in 2008. So the building had been sitting there for about 3 years when we first saw it, since 2008. And so we took a walk through in the building, and we were both overwhelmed and excited. We were overwhelmed because the opportunity in that building was so wonderful. And we were excited because when we had the conversation with Sutter, we literally asked them, can we have your hospital? And it took some time, and they said, well, we've never donated a hospital before. And I said, well, that's funny because we've never accepted the donation of a hospital before. So they said, okay, we'd like to offer this to Social Advocates for Youth to develop into affordable housing. And since then, we've been having lots of conversations in the community, both with neighbors who live in Bennett Valley, as well as youth who would be potential tenants there, and getting a lot of advice on the project. But I think what spoke to us so much about the opportunity is that when we walked through that building for the very first time, we knew at that time there was 701 homeless teenagers and young adults on the streets of Sonoma County. And Daisy, honestly, when you walk down the hallways, there is just a line of hospital rooms with bathrooms in them, good sized, and literally I think what struck us most is that the rooms had beds in them already that were empty. But yet there's 701 homeless teenagers and young adults on the streets of Sonoma County. And I think what really cemented this for us, then in 2013 the count was done again, and this time 1,128. So we're going from 268, 701, and 1,128. And we found ourselves again in another It's Not Okay moment. And so we're very thankful for the generosity of the Sutter Medical Center of Santa Rosa to even consider this. It would be an affordable housing project that would mean so very much to the young people here in Sonoma County who, again, they're not looking for a handout, they're just looking for a hand up. They're willing to pay the security deposit, they're willing to pay the monthly rent, they're willing to go to the JC, they're willing to work. They just need a place they can call home while they build that ground from underneath their feet from which they can stand.
Wow, those numbers, just the way that they increase. Wow,
yeah.
Speechless. Is there an opening date in mind yet or anything?
Boy, that would be great. No, right now SAY, we filed a conditional use permit with the City of Santa Rosa, and I'm working with the City of Santa Rosa's planning department team over there, And so we're just going through the city's process. And so that's going to really dictate a lot of the timeline for a potential opening.
Okay, yeah. I was just thinking about the numbers.
I know, we would love, you know, it's one of those things that from a need standpoint, it'd be something we'd love to have open yesterday. But from a business standpoint, we understand that there's a process, and we want to do everything we can to be a part of that process and get as much of the information we can possibly get out into the community that needs to get out there. And so I think even this conversation is a big part of that. And why? Again, it's not only the numbers, but it's also just the individual stories. And we had brought a group of youth through the building when we first looked at it, and it was about maybe 7 young people. And at the end of the walkthrough, we stopped and I asked the question, so what would you like to get out of this place if we were to open? We didn't even have the name Dream Center then, but we've been talking about since then about the SAY Dream Center. And so what would you like to get out of this place if this actually happened? And one young lady said, I'd like to get out of it everything I did not get at the dinner table, because she didn't have a dinner table. And so that's what we're looking to do, is to create a big dinner table where there's lots of spaces at it, where everyone in the community has a place and they can make a difference in these young people's lives.
Wow. It really seems like the Dream Center, so that's been the name, correct?
Yes.
It's like a family. It's a family center for teens, like you said, that didn't find something, either they were missing something, either from home or school or anything, they can find it there.
Absolutely.
Wow. And so Matt, I want to know, what is your passion? Why do you do the work that you do, and what motivates you every day to get up and to help youth here in our community?
That's a good question. So I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Massachusetts, in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and I'm the youngest of 5. And as a child, my family just had a lot of challenges. My mother was actually a teen mom that didn't graduate from high school and had 3 of my oldest siblings before she was 20. My father didn't finish middle school. And by the same time, they gave me everything I needed to be successful and safe. And I really owe it to them as my parents to do everything I can, because they did it for me. They sacrificed a lot to break the cycles that held us back as a family. So I've dedicated my life to helping others do the very same for them, because I think it's something that we all deserve to have dreams. We all deserve to be able to have the support needed to be able to reach those dreams and fulfill our potential as individuals.
Wow. And is there a certain message or a certain advice that you would give to youth who are watching this today in terms of following their dreams? Yeah,
I think Winston Churchill said it best when he said, just never, never, never give up.
Very powerful, definitely. And so we are running a little bit out of time, but is there any last thing that you would like to add? Also, is there a website or a phone number where people can get a hold of either a certain service or a certain person?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Programs and services are very, very important. So if you're in need of a program and service, I'd recommend strongly to contact Social Advocates for Youth, www.saysc.org.
Okay. And any last words before we close up?
No, I just appreciate this conversation, this opportunity. Thank you, Daisy.
Yeah, and thank you for being here and talking about this wonderful program. I know that it is accessible to youth, families, and now with the Dream Center, I'm just very excited to hear about it and to know a little bit more once it's opened up, and perhaps do a tour or something.
Absolutely.
That would be great. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for watching. This was Daisy Vargas with Local Lights.